Previously on X-Men.
Spoiler review for X-Men Apocalypse. Spoilers, so if you didn't see the movie, go see the movie, come back, watch this video. Now, first things first, I never really was a big fan of the X-Men films. I loved them. When it came out, I was a teenager. We didn't really have superhero films like that. The only competition they had was Spider-Man, which came out after the first X-Men. But when X-Men first came to the big screen, I'm just excited to see X-Men. Now, I really didn't like the tone and the feel of it. I wish they did a lot of things different. But some stuff seemed to go over pretty well. That's because the story in the movie was really good. But it just didn't capture that feel of X-Men you really want. Found out Bryan Singer really wasn't a comic book fan, and he didn't really understand, I think, what the fans really needed to see, or if the fans needed to be pleased first. I believe so. If you just make a good movie, people who aren't fans of the pre-existing material are going to like the movie. But when you make a movie and it has a fan base behind the characters or the brand, and you don't please them, doesn't matter if the critics say, oh, great film, go see it. These fans will rally up, not watch it, bash it, not go to the movie, not pay their money, and you will do terrible. But I think somewhere along the line, Bryan Singer found out what he needed to do. Whether he was going to conventions all the time, being a part of this material and hearing feedback, or just diving into the material and understanding it better. But what he did with Days of Future Past was very, very, very well done. Now, I know he wasn't a part of First Class, not as director. I think he was a producer, but First Class was great too. The only problem I really had with that was the lineup of who the first class of X-Men were. Why not just give us the original first class of X-Men? But story elements, and they try to have some continuity with what they had in the previous films, and they had to do things the way they had to do it. But it still was a good film overall. Now, I'm just going to go over some very key moments and some good points that they had in this movie. And character development. I think a lot of these characters are well established now because we've seen them more than once. Magneto, Professor Xavier, Mystique. Although I feel like a lot of other people, why is Mystique have such a big role in always in a leadership role of the X-Men? It just doesn't feel right as a comic fan. Now, somebody who's not a comic fan probably don't care too much. And a lot of people complain about not seeing Jennifer Lawrence in her makeup enough, but her makeup gives her problems. She's allergic to it. She has boils on her skin and she breaks out a lot. So let's give her a break on that. What she did in Days of Future Past was great. She's very much on her own, doing her own thing and causing a lot of trouble. But anyway, characters were handled very well in this. Even Apocalypse, I like the intro. The beginning of the movie starts off and you see it 3,000 years before Jesus Christ was born. And it's Apocalypse in Egypt, and it's just like everybody's worshiping him. But there are some people who believe he's a false god. Now, Oscar Isaac is very short. Heard people had problems with Apocalypse's height. Well, it seems Apocalypse can age and die with all the powers he has. And his horsemen, who are mutants, back when he was reigning supreme, find somebody, I believe they're a mutant, Oscar Isaac, body, and they cut it, and it heals up instantly. So now he's going to transfer his consciousness into this new body. This person probably can live forever, and they have a healing factor, which means they will live even longer. So he's going to transfer his body into there, but things go wrong. People attack the pyramid, and he gets buried after the transfer was complete. So Apocalypse isn't fully awakened yet. Now we go on to 1983. Apocalypse is awake, roaming the streets, trying to build up his horsemen again, learning about what's going on in the world and the last 5,000 years that he missed. Now, the look of Apocalypse was great, but in action, I didn't see a lot of what I was used to. Apocalypse could shapeshift a lot. He would turn his hand into a shield to block attacks. He would turn his other arm into a blaster cannon. He would shapeshift a lot, his whole body. Now, in the movie, he could, change matter to anything he wanted or create matter. It was crazy. He could manipulate substances and materials. So that was pretty cool. But it was just something about Apocalypse that was off. He had his robotic voice tone that we heard in the cartoons. He had that sometimes, and sometimes he didn't. I really didn't even mind that. It was pretty cool. I liked it. But it seemed very much like he believed he was supposed to be a god, especially with him being the first mutant, which makes sense. But when he recruits everybody, I didn't like the Storm, got her white hair from Apocalypse, unleashing all her potential power. Magneto had one of the best stories of this whole movie. He has a family now. After the events of Days of Future Past, which was 10 years prior, he went into hiding, and he also came up with a fake name. He has a job, a wife, and a daughter. He loves them. He's living his life. He's happy. But when an accident happens and he saves a guy, people see that he has ability. So these people send law enforcement to him. They accidentally kill his wife and his kid. He snaps. He's bad. He's back to the guy he was before, not caring about humans. So Apocalypse recruits him. It seems justifiable, and even Magneto's turn at the end of the movie seems justified. Like, Mystique goes over there with the help of Quicksilver, who has an amazing sequence in this one. Again, a speed sequence. Tries to turn Magneto good again and gave him some words of encouragement. It kind of like started a spark, and you could see he could show emotion as a tear comes down, and I like that. But what really turned him was when turned him good again, which is when he saw Apocalypse attacking people who used to be his friends. He started to care more, and that's when he started to attack Apocalypse again. Now, the action in this film was great. It was amazing, and there was a lot of action. There's a lot of display of mutant abilities, which you should see in a comic book film, especially X-Men. Psylocke, she didn't have too many lines. I love the look. I have to give credit to Olivia Munn for saying that she wanted her outfit resembles very much what Psylocke wears in the comics. But it didn't make sense, well, seeing as Apocalypse gave all his other horsemen armor, and hers was just, I guess, like leather, you know. But it was cool that she said that, and the fact that she wanted that, I'm all for it. And I like it, so no complaints from me. Jubilee wasn't in this movie a lot, but she was in it more than I thought. I've heard from people who saw the movie early that she was barely even in it, but she was in there enough to establish it was Jubilee, and she was a student at Xavier's school. Xavier's school was fantastic. It was very lively. It was full of life. He was teaching. He had all the mutants, I guess, that were older people teaching as well. Hank, you know, the Beast. I would like to see Beast more in Beast mode. I'm used to that. Professor Xavier in this film is playing that role that he was in the first X-Men film. He is a mentor and a teacher, and it's fantastic. But he shows a lot of learning. He still has a lot of learning to do, and you can see that even though he's the teacher at the school. Cyclops. This variation of Cyclops is probably my favorite. Not saying that he nailed Cyclops better than previous actor, because he's a terrific actor also, but I just like this one better. I think they used Cyclops in a better way, especially since it's a young version of him. Got to see a little origin of how he discovered his powers. They made him Havoc's brother. Havoc was in this too. It appears Havoc died at an explosion in a mansion right before Quicksilver saved everybody, but you never know. He might still be alive. Jean. I really like Jean in this. A lot of us know the actress as Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones. But in here, Jean had a lot of backbone and a lot of attitude. I always remember Jean from the comics and the cartoon as being like overly nice and always worried. But in this film, she was worried about her powers mainly. And that was cool. It kind of introduced Phoenix in this film. I hope it's a cosmic entity that's taken over her body instead of just some hidden abilities she has. That would make for a very good storyline. Nightcrawler was okay. We introduced to Nightcrawler at the same time we're introduced to Angel, who I really didn't like in this film too much. He was cool as Archangel, but I didn't like the fact that Angel didn't get a chance to be a good guy. He has a lot of history in the comics as being an X-Man for many years before he became Archangel. And this, he's found by Apocalypse. After he's finished battling, he fights to stay alive, basically. There's humans that keep them caged up in a fight and will kill them if they don't. And he had to fight Nightcrawler, but Mystique went and rescued Nightcrawler. She goes and tries to find mutants and set them free or help them out. Angel never got a chance to be a good guy. He was a bad guy, and in the final battle, he was in the jet as it crashed, and it seems that he died. We see his body, but you don't know if he's lifeless or not. The first half of the movie was a lot of recruitment. They did a lot of recruitment on the X-Men, and also with Apocalypse gathering his full horsemen. One thing I didn't like about Apocalypse, like I mentioned in the action, was he didn't use his growth. In the comics, he can grow to different sizes, and he shapeshifts a lot. And there was a battle that took place inside of his mind and Xavier's mind because they were linked. But I really didn't like the fact that that growth scene had to happen inside of his mind. I would have very much liked to see that while he was fighting everybody. Now, everybody comes together to fight him at the end, especially Quicksilver. And let me talk about Quicksilver. The scene they have in this one where he saves everybody from the mansion, I think it edges that scene in Days of Future Past where he saved everybody in the room. It was fantastic. He had to save people. They put some comedy in there, but also you can see the effects of how, although he's really fast, there are also events that happen fast and he can run out of time. He was getting everybody, he starts running out of time, the explosion's getting bigger, so he had to come up with a way of taking everybody out at the same time instead of running out and running in with each person. And that was very, very creative, and I do like it. I like other variations of Speed. I like to see Speed done in real time. You see like the blur instead of always the slow-mo, but I like the way they do the slow-mo in the film. He even fought Apocalypse for a moment before Apocalypse adjusted to what he was doing and stopped him. Now, the ending was cool. At the end of X-Men Form Up, they got rid of Apocalypse with the help of Jean unleashing her power, which was the Phoenix. But Magneto is still very much on his own. He helps them rebuild the school. He tells Eric, thank you for the words of encouragement. He leaves off. So maybe he still will just fight mainly for mutant rights. When we come to the X-Men, they formed a team and they're in the danger room. And they're Sentinels. And they're going to prepare themselves by training in the danger room. And that was a cool sequence to see. Mystique, she seems to be the leader. And Professor Xavier is the mentor. And that Mystique thing just bothers me a lot. But overall, I would have to say I give the film 3.5 stars out of 5 because it was very entertaining. Now, I did have some problems with the film, but I'm not here to talk about all those problems. But I did want to voice my problems with Apocalypse since he's the main villain, and this is the first time we get to see him. Anyway, like the video if you like the video. Share it, subscribe, write some comments. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you, and I will see you next time.